Hey everyone, Shaedow here, and welcome to another Marvel Contest of Champions video. So I'm just going through a dungeon run with my partner, Itins, and wanted to show you guys just kind of how our dungeon runs go. We do Dungeon 7, and we try to do the dungeons on the first day as early as possible. We played a internet equivalent of phone tag. He was asking me if I was ready, and I said, yeah, I'm ready, but by the time I said I was ready, he was doing something, and vice versa. But normally, we can go through 5 rooms of Dungeon 7, and that's all you need in order to get all of the milestones. And in my previous alliance, I ended up having to do a lot of randoms, and I've had some really bad experiences with randoms. I would use, not even my top champions because I was wary of, a random partner. So I would go in with, maybe my B team, and then my C team, and then my D team, because they couldn't seem to get past room 1. And there were a few times that I could, that I got a good partner and we actually went pretty far, but that was very rare. I mean, I can remember maybe 2 or 3 times that has happened. Now, online messenger, there's a group that I was invited to that was for these dungeons to help everyone find someone. So of course I joined that one because my alliance, they didn't want to do dungeons. They were tired of doing the dungeons. They hated the dungeons. And so I said, okay, well, I need to find somebody to run these with. And I would go in there, and of course I would still ask in my alliance, but sometimes they already had it completed. But I would go into this room and just ask anybody wants to do a dungeon. Well, a lot of times I got no answer. And a few times I got an answer, went through it with one guy that we actually went very well. I mean, it was awesome. We went and got very far, and so I added him as a friend, and he added me as a friend, and we promised, next time we needed it, we would ask each other. So when that time came around, I went ahead and did what I promised. I said, you need dungeons. He was like, yeah. And so I went in. This time, since it wasn't a random, I chose my top guys, best guys for that particular day. And he tanked. I mean, it was like I was playing with a different person. And, okay, so everybody has an off day. I was kind of upset because, I had used my best champions here, and I think we got to room 2. Maybe 2 or 3, and at this time it wasn't a dungeon 7, it was a 6. It was before they made the change. And I said, okay, well, things happen. I tried to complete it, as best I could, but I wasn't able to complete it since he couldn't finish his side and unlink the boss. So I just, was like, okay, well, I'm thinking, fine, let's just get back in here, do another one so that we can finish. But he bailed on me. And he didn't just bail on me. He just said, I'm sorry, I didn't do well this time, blah, blah, blah. And then he just stayed there. He didn't quit. And so I don't know if you guys remember, but by doing that, I was forced to have to wait out the entire time. It was before you could just exit out. Now you can do that. But at that time, he basically just left the game. I don't know what he did. And so I'm like, really? You're not even gonna just quit so that I can maybe, go do something else? Never heard back from him. So I removed him from my friends list and didn't really say anything to him other than, that was not well done, bro, in that chat. And he was just like, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Alright, so never ran dungeons with him again. Ran it with another person. They, they did pretty well. And But more often than not, I couldn't find somebody to run, even from that group. People in my own alliance were spotty. They sometimes did, sometimes didn't. I had one guy who we did run dungeons, and he was very good of a fighter, but he had a lot of connection problems, a lot of issues, and so sometimes, you know, through no fault of his, you know, fighting skill, we still ended up not being able to go very far, and so I would end up having to spend a lot more time in the dungeons than I wanted to. And I knew, you know, a few people that were in my alliance that could run the dungeons and go, you know, pretty far with me, but only a few of them were even doing dungeons. So Itins was one of those that I knew we could go pretty far, and we did pretty well, but you know, he sometimes wasn't doing dungeons, he was busy, he was doing something else, and I like to get it done as soon as possible because I'm usually in arena. So I would get done with a round of arena, then I would like to, you know, get the dungeons done, then I can go do other stuff, you know, work on the project that I'm working on and not have to worry about it until, you know, hours later. So, you know, a few times we ran it, and I forget how we did this, but we made a promise or a pact to run dungeons together. You know, it was at a time where I was extremely frustrated with the randoms that I was getting. I mean, I had used all of my good 5 stars and was using 4 stars, and still, I forget, I think I ended up having to do it in like about 4 or 5 different runs because the randoms kept failing after, you know, the first room. So we made a pact that we would just go ahead and run dungeons together. And he said, awesome, because he's always up for dungeons. You know, he's not always going to be available right that minute, but he's always up to do them. And I'm like, okay, I'll just have to be a little bit patient, and at least then I'll know that I have somebody that can run the dungeons and we can get it done pretty quickly. So that is how our partnership with the dungeons were formed. You know, I've had other people ask me to run dungeons, but I usually want to reserve it for him. Now sometimes, you know, there's been at least one time that we didn't do very well, and he didn't have time to do another one, and so he was like, you know, if you can finish it with someone else, you know, go ahead, otherwise it's going to be late tonight before I can get back in. So I said okay. So I went ahead and did it with another alliance mate, and so far he and I have been running these things pretty well. Now, we did one on the stream, one of my streams recently, and we didn't complete room 5. Normally we actually do, but you know, I don't know, it was maybe a little bit of nervousness because we were, you know, on stream, that sort of a thing. But I think we ended up stopping at room 4, and then we went and did up to room 2. So I wanted to do this one, record it, and show you guys what a typical dungeon run with me and Itins is like. And this one went, you know, fairly well. As you can see, I brought in Archangel, and Archangel, as you may have been watching, he is just a beast. I love Archangel. I had a discussion with about Archangel in my alliance, and one of the guys was saying that if they give out rank down tickets, he's going to rank down his Archangel. And I was like, no way am I ranking down my Archangel. I just got him awakened, so he's even more useful than he was. But all of this time, I actually ranked up my Archangel to 4 unawakened. He was that good, and I have never regretted doing that. So when I awakened him, that just was more of a bonus, and you know, good for the prestige. So now I could actually, you know, bump up his signature level a little bit. You know, he doesn't need a really high signature level. I think you pump in as much as, if you read his signature level, there's like a 33% chance. That's all you want to really go to. But you know, whether he was awakened or not awakened, he is a beast. If they can be bled and poisoned, he is your guy. Now, he can be a little tricky to get those heavies off if you're fighting someone who is stun immune, or like this Agent Venom here, if they have something like Tenacity where they shrug off the stun very quickly. That could be a pain. Like Kingpin as well. I don't like using Archangel with Kingpin, although I have done it and it does work. Kingpin doesn't shrug all of it off, and if you can get those neurotoxins on him, you can make quite a few things stick. So as you can see here, we are both in pretty good shape. We are using that little symbiote. That little symbiote is a beast. We are going to miss him terribly when he leaves. I hope Kabam does something similar in the future, and who knows, maybe they'll bring him back in some form. That would be pretty awesome, because he was pretty cool. I do see something that might imply that he can return with a special 3 even, because if you notice, he doesn't have a special 3 active. But he might come back in some form with a special 3 for us to play with. We'll see. Anyway, both in good shape. I always like to look to see, you know, what his health is looking like, and I could see that, you know, he had one of his champions down a little bit, so I wanted him to go ahead and take the boss and heal up a little bit. I'm not running suicides at this time. I'd turned them off. I forget why I turned them off. I think it was for Alliance War attack. I was going in for an Alliance War attack or something like that. Oh, no, I was placing. Our placement phase had just started, and I had my suicides on. I went through the arena. I wanted to use the most, make the most of my suicides being on, because I had just turned them on for the last Alliance War attack. So I waited pretty long to place. Sorry about that, Alliance. But I waited pretty long to place so that I could, use those suicides in the arena, get as many points as I could, and then I turned off suicides and then I placed. So I'm not running suicides here, but honestly, even when I'm running suicides, the fights go down much quicker, and even though my health gets low, and I don't generally, when I take the boss and I have suicides, I don't get a lot of health because of it, because the fight is over very quickly and I'm still taking that bleed damage, and willpower is doing just but a little, and when I'm hitting him, I'm getting a little bit of health, so I usually don't gain. If I'm fortunate, I might gain maybe 10% health, and that's if I don't take any block damage or get hit somehow. But normally I don't have a problem even if I'm running suicides, but not running suicides, the fights will take a little bit longer, but I'm gonna have a larger health pool and it's gonna be a little bit safer. Alright, so next up we've got Gwenpool. Now Gwenpool, she can be tricky to fight, and I say that because if you mess up just one time, the bleeds on her are vicious. I have actually messed up, gotten hit with just one 5-hit combo, and that was the fight. There was nothing more I could do. I just tried to do as much damage as possible, but her bleed took me from full health all the way down. So she's easy to fight, but you want to be careful, because if she catches you, it's over with for you. Alright, but that fight went pretty well. The symbiote didn't have any problem, and he does so much damage, so I tend to finish these fights pretty quickly. I didn't finish too much quicker than Itins there. Alright, so now we're fighting Crossbones, and we got bulk up and aggressive regeneration. Now I'm not worried about aggressive regeneration, because Archangel, if he gets those poisons on him, and some neurotoxins, he's not going to be regenning at all. So I was always thinking about that when I was looking at the nodes and I knew I had Archangel. I was like, you know what? I'm not worried about aggressive regeneration. Bulk up, not really a concern. So my Archangel should be able to rip him apart pretty easily. Now, Crossbones, he can catch you if you're not careful. Because when he has those Fury stacks up, he can reduce your ability accuracy. And sometimes, you know, you'll go for a parry and you don't get the parry and you're wondering why. He's reducing your ability accuracy, I believe, when he has those Furies up. Not only with the Furies, he's also doing more damage. But Archangel can't have his ability accuracy reduced. Alright, now there, I thought I was about to get wrecked right there. How in the world do they recover so quickly sometimes? Now I know he has a chance to shrug off the stun, so that might have been what happened there. I wasn't really paying attention. But I've had it where they've recovered a little bit faster than I was expecting them to. But he didn't punish me there, so I didn't lose any health. But again, this is room 4, and I have 3 champions that are in pretty good health. So even if he had caught me there and did some damage, so what? We only have 1 more room to go. And we've actually done a room 5 where we were both down to 1 champion and had like a little bit of health on another champion. And we've actually completed it. You know, we take that 1 champion with a little health and we, you know, clear. And then for the boss, we actually discuss it. That's why we sometimes don't move right away. And depending on who the mini boss is, we may switch. You know, if it's a boss that, you know, I do well, you know, like say I have Archangel and he's going up against a MODOK. Well, I'm gonna, you know, be like, okay, well, if you don't want to deal with that MODOK, my Archangel rips MODOKs apart, so I'll take the MODOK and you can switch over here. And we did something like that. I don't remember who it was, but we had to switch over and we were able to finish it there. But communication is the key. Dungeons can be fun if you have somebody that you run with, like I have Itins, that you run with dedicated, because doing it with randoms, that was a very frustrating experience. Alright, so I'm looking at the nodes here and I see that dash vulnerability and I'm like, ooh yeah, you know, it would have to be some really, really bad nodes for me not to take the one with dash vulnerability. The other one would have to be horrible. But usually if I see dash vulnerability, I'm going to tell them to take down the other one, because that dash vulnerability makes the fight so much quicker. They take so much more damage. I love it. Alright, so I lucked out here and I'm fighting an OG Panther. So when I saw him, I was rejoicing. If you guys remember in the beginning of the fighting, I think I was fighting the same guys twice. I think it was the first 2 rooms was the same random, and I think the third one ended up being like a Hawkeye. I'm trying to remember, but I think we, you know, I had the same boss. I think it was Agent Venom, and I ended up fighting the same skill champion for the random. And so for the third one, I was like, okay, I'm gonna bring in somebody that, you know, might be good for that person, and then they switched it on me. But OG Panther, there's nothing special about him. You know, you just bait out either his special 1 or his special 2. Doesn't matter. I don't know if I would have survived a special 3 from him because he's pretty beefed up. At room 5, this is when a lot of shenanigans also will take place, so you have to be really careful. I don't know, when I say shenanigans, I really feel like there's something in the game that causes what we call shenanigans, like that challenger rating. I remember when I first heard about that, I was like, they're actually building something into the game like that. that challenger rating might be the reason that, you know, there might be a ability accuracy reduction that's going on. So like sometimes you try to evade and it doesn't evade, it may have shut down your mastery, your dex. You know, I have a second account and I didn't have dexterity, and when I try the dex, it acts exactly the same way as it does sometimes here, like when they throw a heavy. Sometimes when I used to complain about that, well, I still do, but it doesn't happen as often as it did. But that's how it felt, like I didn't have dexterity at all. So I would swipe back and it just wouldn't move. All right, so I was really careful here. Magicia, he can be really fun. You don't want to take a lot of blocked hits if you can help it. Baiting out his special one, as long as you are familiar with his animations, is not too bad. But his special one and his heavy attack, they look very similar to me, and I don't like dealing with his special 2 at all. But as you can see there, Archangel once again is a beast. I could bleed and poison Magicia, so he was no problem whatsoever. And Itins was able to take down his opponent. And now when I saw his opponent, Thanos, I was like, oh man, I love fighting Thanos. If he had wanted to switch, I would have switched in a heartbeat. I love playing around with Thanos. He was one of the early champions that I fought against and made videos on and just enjoyed it. I forget, well, he was in Act 3, I think, at the end of Act 3, something like that. And I loved fighting him. Just so much fun. I would go in there with Scarlet Witch. I would do it with a 3-star Scarlet Witch. Just all kinds of champions. In fact, every time I got a new champion, I would go in there to test him out. Anyway, that's going to do it, guys. That is our dungeon run. Hopefully you enjoyed it or found it informative, entertaining. If you did, consider smashing that like button. Really helps me out. If you have not subscribed to my channel already, please consider giving me a subscription. Leave a comment below. Let me know what you thought about this video. If you would like to support the channel, there are links in my description to help you do just that. I also have a link to my Discord server. If you want to come join the family. And you guys have a blessed day.